Welcome to the Commercial Edge podcast with me, Chris Webber. Come and enjoy a virtual coffee while I share my experience and ideas that could help you overcome difficult people at work. I share my thinking and insights so that you can find new ways to overcome challenges and gain a commercial edge and unleash the power of people. Today's episode is another special episode. I'm really excited about it. We're going to be talking about the challenges of lead generation in SaaS. And I'm really proud to welcome Alex Young to the podcast. He is the founder of GTM Search, and we're going to discuss what's happening with lead generation in SaaS. Welcome along, Alex.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me, popping my podcast cherry. Really excited to talk about lead gen and the state of outbound in SaaS. It's a hot topic at the moment, so hopefully we can dissect a few points and maybe add some little nuggets for people to take away.
Yeah, and I think it's a great topic, and I'm going to get you to introduce yourself in a second, just so people get to know who you are. But we talked a few weeks ago, and I said to you, I'd love to get you on the podcast and discuss this issue and discuss what's happening with lead generation, what's the attitudes in the industry. It's not an industry I work a lot in. I've got clients who work in SaaS. It's definitely your area of expertise. But what I'd love to try and bring to this conversation is some insights into what's going wrong, right? Why is this becoming a problem? And what I heard from our conversation a couple of weeks ago was a bit of a blame culture developing. And I'd love to unpick that, because that's what I love doing, is finding out what's gone wrong. Why is this blame culture happening? And what tips can we leave people with that might help them to get out of a cycle of doom, shall we say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about, introduce yourself, Alex. Let's learn a bit about you.
Yeah, so I started GTM Search 18 months ago, coming up to 2 years. And prior to that, I was an account exec in SaaS at a Fintech for nearly 4 years. So I essentially decided to start the business because you get approached 14 times a day on LinkedIn, everyone does, by recruiters for opportunities. But what I thought was the stuff that was being presented to me just wasn't relevant based on my experience. And it was clear that a lot of the stuff was being presented to me because they didn't understand what an account executive was, what SaaS was, and truly understand the role. So I've tried to put two and two together, hopefully getting four at the end of it by now, placing account executives and helping startups and scale-ups do so, having done the role myself. And it's now sort of branched off into like wider GTM as well, in sales leadership, SDRs, encompassing marketing and customer success. And yeah, touch wood, all good so far, but it's crazy working for yourself and running a business by yourself, as you know. It's just mental.
It is. You're head of IT, head of finance, head of sales, you name it, you're head of it, right? And
Yeah,
that's the problem.
that's the fun of it.
So let's talk about lead generation. Let's first of all, let's gauge the mood for the people that you're talking to. You obviously have dozens and dozens of contacts across the SaaS industry. What's the mood out there right now, Alex? What are people saying?
Yeah, so I think that everyone's noticing a drop in reply rates from outreach, and people on the other end of the receiving end of the outreach, and you probably receive loads of it, and I do myself as well. You think that probably the quality and the targeting of it is significantly dropped over the last few years. And obviously I've got my thoughts on it, which we will go into. But I think that in summary of it all, it's kind of almost become very much too much of a numbers game, and it's too easy to go out and spray and pray and blast things. And people are looking for kind of quick wins as to kind of get their bites, get their opportunities into pipeline. But ultimately, is that going to get you what you need at the end of it in terms of a happy customer, a closed one, and growth for the business?
Yeah, totally. And it's funny, I was reflecting yesterday and writing a little bit about this concept of you get what you measure. And you just hit on it a little bit there, of getting stuff into pipeline and spray and pray, because it seems like, well, not seems like, you get what you measure. So if you give people objectives and targets, then naturally we want to hit those targets. We want to we want to get recognition from our management. And especially, I guess, lead gen, it's an entry level position often within many organizations. And actually therein withholds a problem. And I'll talk about that in a second. But it's an entry level position and people there are keen to prove themselves. So you say to them, I'm going to measure you on, the volume of stuff that you send out. You're going to get a whole lot of volume, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. And like on that point, it's interesting because when I was an account executive, I was like what you call a full 360 account executive. So I didn't have an SDR function. It was all on me to do top of funnel pipeline lead generation all the way through, discovery, demos, and onboarding and negotiations and things. And
Yeah.
I'm definitely noticing more of a shift towards, especially over the last few years, full 360 AEs becoming a thing as well. So there's definitely, if you've got the SDR role, it's all about pipeline generation and lead generation. But there is noticeably more AEs are having to do more of that as well. And it might be a skill set that they've kind of almost forgotten about over the years because they've not had to do it for a while, or something they're not used to doing, having done so. But when it comes to, measuring the metrics for it, when I mentioned, ultimately you want a full pipeline. Like, pipeline saves all when it comes to sales, but it only does when they are the right
Yeah.
prospects in your
But it's,
pipeline.
yeah. Yeah.
If you're
But it's
booking meetings
genuine
with anyone,
pipeline. Yeah,
exactly.
and I think, and so there's so much automation coming into this, and I think that's where we're leading when it comes to lead generation, is automation, because we've got AI writing stuff now. We've had automated tools to send emails out and sequence activities for at least 5, 6, 7 years, maybe. And this whole idea, I guess it came from the US. It's huge in the US, of like sequencing connections and contacts, so LinkedIn messages and emails and text messages and all that kind of stuff, which funny enough I think is a different culture in the US, by the way. And I also think that's one of the things that doesn't translate to Europe. In the US, data is not safe. Your data is online. Everybody can find your phone number, find your email address. Nothing is private, and as a result of that, these automation tools can fire a message at you using different channels. But in the UK and Europe, because we have data protection, you can hide your email address, you can hide your LinkedIn details, you can hide your social media details. And what it means is, for this lead generation sequencing, you're left with very few options. It's like, oh, I've got a LinkedIn thing, so I'm going to send LinkedIn messages. That's all, because that's all I'm allowed to do. And I think that in itself creates a problem. And I don't think that is understood well enough, that our channels of communication with people become so limited because we just don't have the freedom that exists in the US.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, as much as people might think that as well, you can go out, like, every single salesperson goes out and buys this data from, like, all the different providers. So
Yeah.
you do have access to all these things. But I think on the automation piece, like everything, when something, and I know it's not new because, as you said, it's a few years ago that sequencing actually became a thing, and cadences and all the rest of it. But like anything that's new and impactful and makes people's lives easier, it can go too much the other way, and people overuse it to the detriment of the quality that actually comes out at the other end of it. And like we alluded to on our conversation, this particular point is a topic that I see on LinkedIn an awful lot. And like I said to you, it's quite polarizing. Might have actually been the wrong word, but it definitely sparks, like, debate about it. And
Hmm.
this whole thing about relevance versus personalization,
Yeah.
because ultimately you can have the best sequences built, you can have you can have all the data, you can have all the right information of the people that you need to contact. But ultimately, if that person you're reaching out to, or that business, or there's multiple people in a business, people multi-threading, are not relevant based on the solution or the product or whatever it is that you're trying to sell, you're not, you shouldn't be speaking to them. They shouldn't be part of your targeted outreach, because when it comes to relevance versus personalization, like in my eyes, relevance wins all. And ultimately, if you're looking to engage someone, you can capture them and get them involved in a process and put them in your pipeline if the solution and the challenges they're facing are relevant to what you're pitching them, versus if you only go down the personalization route. It could be the best personalized message and the nicest thing referencing their university degree and all this sort of stuff, but if the solution is totally irrelevant and just not a thought that business is looking at whatsoever, it's not going to go anywhere. And I think that the personalization piece is sometimes easier to automate because things can just scrape and say, like, put in where this person went to uni or their football team or whatever it may be. And that's all nice and great and all the rest of it. But like from a personal perspective, I would only ever respond to some sort of outreach if it was a relevant problem that I'm having or something I'm looking to solve or particularly relevant to me or my business. I couldn't care less if you know that I support Ipswich Town. Like, it's on my LinkedIn and it's there, it's active, but that's not going to make the decision for me looking to buy a solution.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it's an oversimplification. The way I see it, it's an oversimplification of something to try and secure a wins. There's have you read the book Influence by Robert Cialdini?
I haven't.
It's very, very, very popular book, very well known, very well seen. And he pulls out lots of various influence strategies that we use as humans. And in the book, one of the things he talks about is liking, that we do business with people that we like. And he shares some examples in the book of how to do it. And it's exactly what you've just described, personalization. And it's, you meet someone and they say, hey, my name's Mary. Oh, Mary, that was my mother's name. Now we have a personal connection. You're more likely to like me. And what his research shows is that by using that tactic, you're more likely to warm to me because we have something in common, right? And that's you support Ipswich Town, I support Ipswich Town. Wow, what a coincidence. We've got something we can bond on. Now, that's true, but what it isn't is massively impactful. So what Cialdini says in the book is, yes, this makes a difference, but it might make a 15% difference in research on the value and the impact. So yes, it can add value to your conversations, but it also doesn't add so much value that you've transformed your connection. And we need trust to sell to people. This is one of the things that is so important in sales. We do not buy from people that we do not trust. And the reason is we are naturally, as humans, cautious. We are cautious of strangers. We are cautious of things we don't know. We are cautious of things we don't understand. And we also have an ego. And what that means is someone comes in, knocks on my door, stops me in the street, phones me up and says, you don't know me, but I'm going to sell you something. My instinct naturally from thousands of years of evolution is beware, right? Watch out. This person could be dangerous. And so we need to build some rapport and some trust in order for me to want to buy something from you. Liking is a big part of that. That's hey, I notice you support Ipswich Town. I support Ipswich Town. We've got something in common. Don't be afraid of me. We're okay. But that's not as simple as that. Trust has got other elements. And one of those elements of trust is credibility. Credibility and understanding. So credibility, am I somebody that you can have a conversation with and you come away from it going, this person knows their stuff? And understanding is, hey, I recognize the problems that you have. I've seen them before, or I want to understand more about what those problems are. Now you combine those three things, we're having a conversation.
100%. And I'm glad you said the credibility piece, because ultimately I totally understand what you're saying about, the need to build a rapport and be liked and build trust, but you don't get the chance to do that if the outreach you've done to someone is so left field, so irrelevant that it just shows that you've not done the research on the account. You don't know that the problems that they're facing to be able to solve them based on similar ICP prospects that you've worked with. That for me is the first stage of being able to even have a chance of having a conversation with that person, where
Yeah.
then once you're having one of these, or you're face to face, sat down, whatever it may be, then you've got the chance to build the rapport on top of that and the likability part of it. And I think that, like, ultimately you've got a chance. If you miss out the relevance piece and gaining credibility, you're never going to have a chance to build the likability part, the relationship part of selling, which is a massive part of anything. Because if you think that, if you've got, naturally, if you're selling a solution, a SaaS solution, you're probably going to be up against some different vendors in the space, and everyone is probably going to be solving similar challenges, and it's going to be, our solution is the best for XYZ reason because we can do this for you, do that for you. And then if you think, how are we going to decide between who we're going to go with, you're going to then start thinking back to, what's the process been like of engaging with this person and this business? Have we got on throughout the process? Do I feel heard? Have we got some things in common? That could be a differentiator between ultimately close one versus a competitor.
Well, it's very much so. And there's lots of data that says something like 60 or 70% of a buying decision is based upon the experience of buying. This is exactly why when you go into a retail store on the high street, the way it's laid out makes a huge difference. How easy was it to find what I wanted to find? How did the store look? What was the queue like at the till? Like, all of these things we take for granted. And it has to be built into that buying experience. And that's where the credibility comes in. And I think one of the difficulties is that because of the automation, it's allowed companies to kind of generate leads by throwing out lots of muck and see who bites, and not have to think about how credible our people are. And your lead gen team, whether they're SDRs or whoever they are, AAs, they are your face to the customer. It doesn't matter how experienced your founding team, your leadership team are, your sales directors, your marketing team are, because 99% of the time they don't speak to customers. Your customers see the 22-year-old and hear the 22-year-old who sends them a message. That is your company. And so your brand is what people send. And so if you send out messages that are irrelevant to lots and lots of people, what you're doing is you're building a brand noise around your brand that says, I'm irrelevant. Oh, and by the way, my people don't really know what they're talking about, because you haven't invested the time to enable them to be credible. And that's the thing. And to be relevant, you have to be credible. You cannot separate those two things. You need someone who looks at an organization or looks at an individual and says, is this person a lead? Or could they be a lead? Because I've noticed something that is relevant. They're in an industry that we service. They have challenges that they might be facing that I've seen before or we deal with. And that's not necessarily like A, B, C. It's the ability to look beyond the surface and have a little bit of a think about it. And that you just can't automate.
Definitely. You've, like, from the top down, you've got to enable people to be able to, like you say, if they're going to be the face of your business and your company, you've got to enable them in the best way possible to make sure your company is seen in the best light. And I'm not sure exactly what the percentages are, but there's only a very small percentage of businesses that are actually actively in the market buying a particular solution at any one time. And
Yes.
unless you've got really, really strong buyer intent signals and all this sort of stuff that you can capture and then go after, it's very much a stars align moment if you capture the right person at the right time with your outreach. And then there's a bigger percentage of businesses that will be facing the challenges that you can solve. It just might not be, top priority, that they're already in the market trying to, go and look at a solution to solve. And that's a pot of people that should be receiving your outreach, and they should be being targeted from a particular business on the basis of them knowing who their ICP is, the challenges they face. They've got case studies of similar customers and the successes they've had with the similar challenges that those businesses have faced that they're going after. And if you're not specifically targeting those businesses as a SDR, AE, whatever your role is within the company, because anyone can do outreach, the founder can be doing outreach if they really wanted to, you're just spending so much time going after in the wrong spaces. It's got to be targeted.
This is part of my kind of challenge to SaaS companies is I think what you need to think about with a digital world is apply it to the real world and see if it makes sense. And you're saying in the digital world, I'm going to get a person in my organization who's been in the team for about 3 years, very smart person, but relatively inexperienced. And the thing I'm going to get them to do is to go and knock on the door of a director of IT in a organization for the first conversation about the problems that they're having and how we can help solve them. And you're going to send them off. Now, I worked in sales for 20 years, and I do not imagine a world where I would be walked in to see somebody that senior without some support from my organization. And that's technically what's happening. I get messages on LinkedIn from people who have spent, 9 months in a particular job, and their job is lead generation, and they want to tell me how to do my business, how to run my business. And I don't think there's a world where we could say, oh, senior people should be doing all your outreach. No, absolutely not. But I think you've got to manage expectations about what it is you want people to actually do. And I think maybe there is too much emphasis put on this qualification element, and your junior people are taking conversations too far before others are getting involved. And it's going to be different in every organization, but that worries me, Alex, that there's this kind of level of trust where then a sales director will sit at the end of the week and say, let's have a pipeline meeting. Where are we? Who've we qualified in? Who've we qualified out? And somebody says, oh, I've got this opportunity. I've spoken to this person. And they go, right, you need to speak to X, Y, and Z in their organization first to qualify whether this is an opportunity. And I've heard these conversations, and I'm like, I think they've done their job. I don't know if this was the real world, face-to-face world, would we really want to do that? And there's another point on this, which is that we need to lead the right way. We sell to problems, but you can't lead with the problem. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend of mine introduced me to a contact and said, this guy's got some problems with lead generation. A marketing business that worked with clients on their websites, and what they wanted to do was kind of improve the quality of their websites. And so I had a conversation with him, and he said, oh, we've got some great software, great tools that compares their website to the competition, does an audit, points out areas of opportunity, how we can improve their communication, and then we want to work with them. And he said, so what we do is we do an audit of their website free of charge, and we knock on the door and say, hey, we found a problem with your website. Would you like us to fix it for you? And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. So basically, you're stopping me in the street saying, you don't know me, but I've looked at the way you run your business and I think it's wrong. And I can fix it for you, and expecting me to go, yeah, thank you very much for this. Like, you've got to lead with positive intent, with some sort of kind of, how do I learn to trust you first? And I said to him, start with your creds, with your credibility, start with kind of what you do, and then ask me if I want your advice. And there's too often I get these messages and people send out messages going, your problem is this. Is it though?
Yeah, it's a fine line, but because you're right, we're trying to sell against either a problem that a business is having, or something that, an end goal that they're looking to achieve, and they need X, Y, Z in order to get there. And if you lead too heavy on, this is a problem for you, or I know this is it's at the end of the day, it's a human on the other end of that phone or that email or whatever it is, and that's just going to get that person's back up. So this is like, for me, when it comes to like especially some of the initial messages that that you're sending out to someone, ultimately the end goal of all of this is to get a meeting with that business to fully to be able to have a proper conversation about, ultimately, can we work together, can we help, is there any value in it? And you need, like you say, you need to be able to show your credibility first to have a chance of getting that. And also, like for me, when I do I tweaked the way that I did my messaging and my outreach. It was a few months ago now, because I was working with a trainer, and
Yeah,
I was leading very much, or I'm now, sorry, leading more with value than I ever have done, in terms of, like, I've put together this piece of information that's helped XYZ businesses do this off the back of it. Would love to share it with you, and let me we can have a catch up. Let me know if it's any value to you. Like, just you're
yeah.
proving your credibility from day one within it. Also knowing that the businesses that I'm targeting are targeted, they would be ICP for me, and I know this for XYZ reason, and the reasons that I've worked with other businesses in the past. And
Yeah.
ultimately, you're building that credibility and trust from day one, and you're getting closer to the chance to be able to uncover what some of their challenges might be, or what some of the goals are of the business, to then be able to see if there's an opportunity to work together.
Absolutely agree with that, Alex. And I think that let's take a real world example. Is first, well, one of the early parts of a lead gen opportunity is a LinkedIn connection request, and I get loads, you get loads, you send loads. The first thing that I do is I click on the profile of the person who sent me that request. And because I'm interested in who they are. The second thing that I do is to click on the company link that they work for to find out who the company is. And I think you said this, or it came up in our conversation, that a buyer has something like 7 or 8 pieces of content that they have looked at before they might engage with the salesperson. So when they get that request, when they get that first email, if there is any inkling of interest, so let's move this conversation on a bit and kind of say, okay, I've got a reasonable outreach here that makes me feel like I'm curious. I want to know more before I respond to them and say, let's have a conversation. And what I see when I click on those links means everything. I want to know how many contacts they have and how many connections. If they've got less than 1,000 or less than kind of 500, I'm a bit suspicious, because I'm like, well, this is someone who's like new. Do they have credibility? Don't know how you fix that, because that's just a time thing, but worth reflecting on. Then I want to know what they post. If all they do is post stuff from their company site, repost stuff from the company site, or like other stuff, I lose interest. This is not someone I want to add to my network who's going to add value. I feel like if I have a conversation with them, this is not someone who's bringing me value, because all they're doing is just resharing stuff. I want someone with ideas, opinions, who's going to post stuff. That's how they're building their credibility. And when I look at their company page, I want the same stuff. I want to see the company talking about industry relevant things. I want to see them posting about stuff that's important. I want to see their people. I don't want it to just be bland stuff. I want to hear what their founder says. I want to know what their commercial people are talking about. I want to feel like this is a real company with real value, that even if I don't want to buy from them right now, is somebody that I want to have in my back pocket.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of this kind of opportunity in SaaS is a bit like dealing with plumbers. No one needs a plumber until your boiler breaks on a Sunday. And then all of a sudden you're like, who the hell do I know who's a plumber? And that's the same in SaaS. There are some early adopters. New software comes out, people want to be on it. Most people wait till it's kind of established and they've heard it talked about, and they go, it's probably time that we started to adopt this system and this software. And then they start kind of more engaging. But the brands that are in their mind are the ones that they've recognized are in this space adding value. And I think if you overemphasize just about lead gen sales, like let's just nail the outreach, and you're not thinking what value are we adding into the system, you're damaging the credibility of any prospects.
100%. And like the best, because I've obviously, like similar to you, we've bought software for our businesses to help them run and to
Hmm.
as part of the day to day. And like I've partnered with businesses at a super early stage where like I was literally working with them when it was all on spreadsheets and they hadn't even built the platform yet they're building, but it all came from um, like there were specific challenges that they knew from being in this market that needed solving, reached out to me, and I was and because they resonated with me and that nobody was fixing that problem yet, I was an early adopter in inverted commas to work with that sort of business. And
Yeah,
the best sort of I think the best sort of SaaS businesses, and probably any sort of business, are those that are built out of people that have been in that space already and have identified the challenges that they had in their day-to-day world that nobody was fixing, that could be made easier and could make people's lives easier. So they go and build a solution and build a product off the back of it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
anything that, like, number one, they're going to be a thought leader in that space because they're from that world originally, and then they built
totally,
a product off the back of it. And then in
totally.
theory, number two, anything that any content they put out there, any outreach, any messaging, whatever it may be, should always be value led because they are, you know, they were a user. They would have been a user of this product had it already been built. And I think that like LinkedIn's an interesting one because ultimately, if your prospects and your target customers don't use LinkedIn, because there's some industries that just have you have a profile but you
Agreed.
don't do anything with it, like
Agreed.
don't put any, you're wasting your time in trying to do outreach on there and putting stuff out there because there's going to be a lot of effort for like zero
Unless,
results.
unless your customers have a profile because they want to check out people. So I still okay, but
Yeah.
because it's also an easy way to check on people's professional credentials.
Yes, and there's and this is something that I learned recently, that there's so much value in like silent. I don't know what the right phrasing is, but like silent watchers, people that don't
Yep.
engage on things, people that don't do commenting and all this sort of stuff, but they're there, they see it. And
Yep.
I've had like people reach out to me directly, whether it's looking for a new role or looking to hire someone, and I look back through and think like they've never messaged me, we've never spoken to each other, they've never commented on one of my posts or whatever it may be, but they said that they've seen my stuff, or however you want to phrase it, on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So that you're right, there is still value in being active on there. It's
But
interesting.
you're
This is a
talking
bit,
about messaging. You're talking about don't message someone if they haven't posted in the last 2 years, right?
yeah,
That's your point. Yeah.
exactly. And this is a bit of an aside here, but just something that this might be useful for someone that might watch this or not, is that when you get your messages on LinkedIn or your connection requests, do they normally have a message in them, or are they just like blank and they've just been sent out? Have you noticed any?
It varies, actually, to be fair. It varies. So some come just with nothing, some come with a message.
So I used to always send a message as part of my connection request, and now I don't. And I've definitely noticed an uptick in connection acceptance rates. I'll send a message if it's a really specific, like somebody's recommended you go speak with this person. I'll put a little note in there to say so and so said I should speak with you, because that, like, they can't reply to that, they can't ignore that. But normally, I've noticed, and I've seen some other people posting about this as well, significant uptick in acceptance rates when you don't put a message in the connection. Because if you do, and what a lot of people tend to do is like tee up that I'm going to sell you something or I'm going to pitch
Yeah,
you
yeah,
when
yeah.
you accept
Yeah.
this, and that's just going to make someone not want to accept it.
Totally. And your judgment of who they are comes on what message they send. If there's no message, then you often look at their profile first, and
Yeah,
then you look at, is this a person who's going to sell me something? But even if they are, because let's be honest, 99% of people are selling
that's what
something at
LinkedIn
some
uses for.
for. Yeah. Then, but you're starting to judge not just on are they going to chase me and sell me something, or are they adding value to my world with the stuff that they post? And
Hmm.
you can't get that necessarily from a connection request. And I totally agree with that, Alex. And I think it's this whole thing about value add is, to me, the big opportunity. And coming back to your comment of why things were started matters. I think Canva is a great example. Um, like everyone, I grew up using PowerPoint to do everything. Um, I started to use Canva because it was free and I heard a couple of people talking about it and quite liked it. And over, I guess, 2 or 3 years, I've continued to evolve it to now it is probably the main, or certainly up there with the main tool that I use to generate presentations, to generate documents that I send to people, and other types of content as well, edit videos, right? And it's a unique piece of whatever it is, software, because it covers all of those things. There isn't another thing that allows you to do all of those things in one place. So user interface. That is exactly a creator who said, here's a problem. I didn't see it was a problem, but I understand now that what the problem was. Um, and if someone had tried to sell me that problem, that product, I wouldn't have been interested. You couldn't tell me, you're going to sell me Canva to do what? Really? Well, I'm sorry, but I can do all of that stuff, and it costs me no more than my Microsoft subscription, which, by the way, I now have to have. It's like having sewerage in your house. You can't not have it anymore because it's so fundamental to how the business works. So I have to have that, and you want me to pay more for this. I'm now a Canva subscriber, and it came from the fact that they were putting out content. They were talking about what Canva can do. It became a kind of community of creators who used Canva, who became Canva. It wasn't because of people cold calling, sending me messages saying, "Hey, do you want to upgrade your your free use of Canva to a paid use, whatever?" Right? Um, and the reason I use that example is that I think there's too much pressure on exit. I've lost count of how many people have got in their LinkedIn title exited after, with six-figure exit, and I'm like, yawn. Like, what value are you adding? That's telling me what you've done in the past. Tell me about something that you're adding value to now. But there is a lot of pressure on that. There's a lot of PE interest in SaaS systems and software, and there's pressure to exit. And when there's pressure to exit, my goal is to get out, not to add value to the industry, to the business, to solve people's problems. And if you take a step back and say, let's be a user, as you just talked about, and it just really triggered me. Let's be a user. What would I like to see? What would I like to understand? What do we need to publish to make our users love this experience? Then we'll attract the users. And you know what? If we get to a certain scale, then we can exit. But I think it's this kind of forced pipeline because we've got founders and executives and private equity companies who just want to exit with as much cash as they possibly can, as quickly as they can, that it's very transparent in, top to bottom of the pipeline. Like, let's get as many people in as possible. So we need to automate our systems. Let's qualify out as many people as we can during the process. And I feel like if there was a bigger view of what are we trying to solve, like not just what's the problem we're trying to solve and let's sell it, but what are the problem we're trying to solve and how does that look? I think it would change some of our lead gen culture, and it would be different. And imagine, Alex, if people started picking up the phone and having conversations with customers about their experience or what was going on, rather than just simply saying, like, sending them 4,000 emails in a row.
Yeah, like we haven't even touched on that, have we? But like that is a immediate opportunity to prove your credibility with someone and have a conversation with them, as opposed to, like you say, 8 messages down the line, like curtailing someone into just jumping on a call to see if it might be relevant, kind of thing. And it's definitely started making, I think, a bit of a renaissance, the phone, over the last couple of years, and people putting like emphasis back on its value as a channel and as a tool to obviously do lead gen and pipeline generation, but ultimately just to be able to have conversations with people in the market and understand a bit more about it.
Relationship building,
exactly. And I think that with what we said around some of the automation, by the way, I'm all for technology and automation and making your life easier, absolutely.
totally.
But
Totally.
not at the detriment of the whether it's the quality that comes out at the end of it, or at the the detriment of the person on the receiving end of it just being bombarded for absolutely no reason. And the phone itself is probably one of the things that is least technologically advanced in the last 20 years. The phone is the phone. You can pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone in 2 seconds, kind of thing.
100 years old, 125 years old or something,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. And I think this thing of, if your outreach numbers are dwindling, and by that I mean ultimately the good quality pipeline numbers that you've got is not where it needs to be or is dwindling, I think you need to start going back to things that don't scale and not using as much automation, and really thinking about who you're targeting, the messaging you're doing, phones included in that, and the channels that you're looking to reach them on. Because if you take 5 minutes to think about something before doing it, you'll be a lot more conscious and aware of who you're trying to speak to and why you're trying to speak to them, rather than just pulling up a list of 5,000 businesses and just sending something out there.
yeah, totally agree. I met a guy a couple of years ago, and he works supporting people on social media. And his target audience are it's not SaaS, but it's small business, right? And a big important thing for him is lead generation. And his piece of insight, which I love, is if they're already on social media, then it's unlikely they're going to want my help. Everybody knows about social media, but lots of people don't know how to use it. So my target audience are the ones who are like, I don't know what to do about it. So he printed leaflets, and he spent Saturday mornings walking around shops like hairdressers. So people who would benefit from social media accounts, hairdressers, nail bars, beauty salons, dentists who do kind of beauty stuff, coffee shops, kind of businesses that, by building up a good Instagram profile, building up a Facebook profile, can kind of build their audience, drive repeat usage, all that kind of stuff. Handing out leaflets and having a conversation with a manager or an owner in their shop. That is proper old school, non-scalable lead gen opportunities. And he built a large group of reliable, loyal customers through that. And so, yes, it's not easy to pick up the phone and talk to people, but it is a huge advantage if you can get it right, because it allows you to be a person, to bring your personality to the conversation. And that's what we want to talk with. We want to deal with people. And you're right. There's something about, if you read your email to them as this is what I'm sending you, I think you would go, oh my God, this is way too long. It's way too and this is one of my big problems with sales in general, is many conversations start with I. So I want, I need, I'm looking for, I'm hoping to.
I do this, I can do that.
and your customer kind of sees that. And so if you imagine reading that email and then reading it out to it on a phone call, you would change it completely. It would be shorter, it'd be punchier. You would have to hand over to them. Tell me about yourself. You'd want to know who they are. Like, all of that kind of stuff changes. And the other thing, Alex, that just sprung to mind is jargon. Oh my gosh, jargon drives me crazy. I don't know whether there's like a school that people get sent to. Maybe it's something that you've come across, where it's like the kind of lead gen a school of sales, where everyone needs to jump on a call. Really? Do we have to jump on a call? We have to do an outreach. There's lots of circling back that goes on. One of the things that drives me crazy is in emails, and this is me being an old person, by the way, this is me demonstrating my age. I wanted to send you an email. So why the I wanted to is not necessary in this message.
Why are you telling me what your thought process is that I'm going to send you? You're already sending me it. I can tell you wanted to do it because you've done it.
Yeah, but just send me an email.
Yeah.
So, hey, Chris, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to listen to you. The other thing that I've found, this is a very personal thing, and it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but it's worked for me a lot over 25 years of sales, is being excited. I'm really excited to work with you. I'm really excited to have a meeting and to hear this. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your challenges. Um, Bring some enthusiasm into your
Mm.
conversation. Make this prospect feel important. Make them feel like there's someone that you really want to talk to. Goodness me, you spend so much time trying to generate a meeting with this person. And when you get to it, the first thing you start a meeting with, hello, how are you? Great to meet. And I'm like, come on. Hey, I'm so
Yeah.
pleased to have met you today. Do you know what? I've spent ages. I've really tried to get to understand your company, your team. Really pleased to have this time to have this conversation with you. Thank you. Thank you for giving me 20 minutes to hear a bit more about what you're trying to do. Let's be positive. Let's bring some enthusiasm in the world.
100%. There's a again, this is another thing where I think there's a bit of a fine line between, and again, this is I think preference on how you're taught maybe in sales as well, and where people put value on certain things in a process. Like to counter that, there's plenty of people that would say like your time, i.e., you as a seller, me, don't devalue your time and be so grateful that for they've given you the chance to have this conversation with you and all this sort of stuff. Like there's a fine line between being, like you say, engaging, confident, and like fully in that conversation and captivating with it, and but still, I'm trying to think of the right way of phrasing it, and but
It's
still not.
respect. It's
Yeah,
about building respect. You want people to respect you.
yeah,
Um, and I preach a lot, balance of results and relationships. Great people in businesses find the balance between the both. They they focus on what I'm trying to deliver for my team, for my business, and for myself. But they also recognize the importance of building strong relationships, partnerships with key people. Um, and and there's a balance between the two of them. And what you're saying is like if it becomes overly sycophantic, oh, I really appreciate that you've
great
given
word.
me 20 minutes. It's an amazing opportunity for me, but that's still me, right? It's an opportunity for me. I'm really pleased that
Mm,
you're giving this time. If you balance results and relationships, it becomes, hey, I'm really excited to have this conversation. Thank you for sparing the time. I recognize that you're busy. That's empathy.
mm,
That's understanding that you've given me some time. Hey, what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes is I'm going to add some value to our conversation. I'm going to teach you a little bit of something about what we do, or I'm going to help to understand a little bit more about how we could help you there. It's you focused, not I focused.
yeah.
And bearing in mind the goal that you have in mind, that you're building respect. Respect me as somebody. I'm not a sycophantic person who's just desperate to have a conversation with anybody,
Yeah, totally. And like in reference to basically everything we've ran through over the last however long it's been, it all comes down to like the value led piece of top down from founders of why they built the solution, why they built the product first of all.
Totally.
And then
Yeah.
you've got to like be really, really clear on who your ICP is and who you're going to go after and who can actually benefit from this. Because if you don't, you're going to start doing performing outreach and looking to speak with people who like see no value in you trying to
Yeah.
speak to them
You're
and the
just
solution.
looking for Ipswich Town supporters and not Ipswich Town supporters who happen to have a challenge with IT security, for argument's sake.
Exactly. And when I was in AE, I was, 'cause you mentioned something earlier about like qualifying people out,
Yeah.
and I like was I want to phrase this in the right way, a big believer in qualifying out, but being done in the right way,
Mhm.
because ultimately, with the solution I sold before was in a very specific market, so we knew our ICP, we knew what would work and what wouldn't work with our solution. It was quite specific in the way that things needed to operate to fit very well with a particular prospect, and if during that qualification process, as early as possible, it became clear that it wouldn't work. It would not make their lives easier. It would actually make it harder if they were going to work with us. I would, qualify people out, but being done in the right way possible, because ultimately I've reached out to them, got them on this call, and then I've qualified them out. So it's got to
Yeah,
be
they said
done.
it's not for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got to be done in the right way, but framing it, because ultimately it would be a bigger waste of time to take you through this, sell you the dream, you come on board and then you churn 2 months later because you've not got any value out of it.
Yeah.
You really only want to be spending your time on people that you can help and you can add value to. And that comes like right from the very top down. And it should be the forefront of any phone call, email, LinkedIn, DoorDash, pigeon letter that you send. Is this person going to get value from firstly speaking to me and hearing from me? And then ultimately, will I be able to add value to their business?
And I think being able to be honest about whether you add value to their business is what you're saying about qualifying out. If you've got a very clear understanding of the type of organization that you can help and should help, then I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, do you know what, that's been an amazing conversation. Um, what I'm going to say to you is, I don't think you're going to get as much as I want you to get out of our product. Um, I understand that you've got various different challenges in the marketplace and things you're trying to solve, which is why we're having this conversation, but I'm not sure our product is right for you. Um, Credibility, you build credibility. And Alex, I would love people then to have in their mind, what would they suggest this customer does?
Yeah.
That would build your reputation so much more. People buy from people. And if you finish your conversation by saying, look, in the market, there are a couple of other products that I think might suit you better. Ours is not going to be right for you. I'm happy to send you a website link. I'm happy to, just point you in the direction of where you might find that. You'll find someone who says, thank you. I really appreciate that. You'll also build an advocate. Whether it's today or tomorrow, that person could be the next buyer in the next big company that you want to do business with. Somebody said to me years ago, goodness, you seem to know everyone in your industry. How is it that you've got all these contacts? And I said, because I spent many years in bars and cafes talking to people about shit in order to build relationships that matter 20 years later, 10 years later. There's not enough of that. And I'd love that to be a thing that people are doing. It shows credibility. It also shows humility. And you finish that call on a positive note. You've also opened the door to say, do you know anybody else that you might want to connect me to who would fit this profile? Because that could save you another 6 months of work trying to get a contact with this guy's best mate who happens to be in a bigger company that they spent 15 years working together. Once you start to build your network, people do not use their network. And there's some wonderful books about one of the titles is All You Need to Do Is Ask. And Adam Grant has got some books about this as well, about relationship building and the fact that if you ask people for help, mostly they will help you, especially if you've built respect. And so I think that's another way to finish your conversations. If this is not someone who wants to do business with, who's right for you, avoid the phrase qualify out with your prospects.
Yeah, you know,
But if
I'm
they're not
qualifying you out.
you out, yeah, right. But say to them, I don't think this is right for you. But thank you for your time. And here's what I suggest that might be value to you, because it perhaps fits more likely. Then you're finishing that call with respect, with humility, and you might get reciprocity. There's also an influence strategy, which is it works in the boardroom level, particularly if you're pitching something and you've got people sitting in the room who are suspicious, who are negative, who kind of prefer a different solution. Instead of presenting, what we tend to do is we present the positives. Let me tell you why you should buy my product. Go the opposite way. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why you should not buy this product, why you don't want it. You remove the elephant in the room. You bring humility into the room, and you start to open a conversation about how you can solve those problems, because they're thinking them anyway. So, hey, you're not going to want to buy this because it's very expensive compared to the competitors at the moment. And I recognize that. And be honest about what those things are. You will then stimulate a conversation, because they're going to go, well, why are you here then? And you go, well, this is my question. And what I'd love to do is talk to you about not the price, but the value, for example. You've triggered that conversation.
Yeah.
And so don't be surprised if, as you try to qualify out prospects, they try to qualify themselves in.
Yeah, it's another prime tactic. But again, only to be used if your ultimate goal is to close that business, because you don't want to try and qualify someone out and you end up qualifying them back in, and then they end up buying and you churn anyway.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that. I think, but if it's like a genuine conversation, there are times where there's grey areas, and this is part of the problem. We've got a target company size of over 500 people. Here's a company with 350 people. Do you know what? It's like, oh, isn't it? Is it worth
Mm.
it? Is it not worth it? And you kind of go, well, look, do you know what? I don't think you guys are going to be right for us. I'm not sure you'll get value for money from it. Might turn into a much more easy sale because they want to buy it, and it's kind
Mhm.
of on the cusp. I take that one internally and have a conversation with somebody and say, look, this guy's really keen. You might go, let's give it 6 weeks, see what happens. If we can make some progress, carry on. But if not, if it starts to get hard work, then fine, we'll go back to where we were originally. Those
Yeah.
are the difficult ones. Those are the grey areas where it's on the cusp, right?
Yeah, and I think that, like, for me, and it's specific actually in like the role I do in recruitment, it's all about managing expectations and being clear from either side. So if you're having a really open conversation with a prospect why you don't think they might not get the value from it, but then they're pushing back because they think X, Y, Z, and you get to this point of, as you say, right, let's take it further. Let's see if we can get further into this. As long as both parties and all parties have been as open and transparent and as clear as possible, and they're entering into it on the premise of knowing that we're still doing it to see if we can actually take this further, then that's totally fine. It's just when expectations aren't managed, somebody's been afraid to ask the difficult questions or say the difficult thing, and something's just carried on, and just more and more time has gone on down the line. It's just everyone's time's been wasted, and then there's a nasty shock at the end of it because you didn't have that open, difficult, transparent conversation earlier on in the process.
Yeah, totally. Let's wrap it up. It's been an amazing conversation, Alex. I think
God, we've been
there's a
going
few
for
things.
ages.
I know, we just talked for an hour. So there we go. We talked for an hour. I think to me, there's a few things. And I love that you just finished that by saying difficult moments, difficult conversations. That's where I add value, is helping people to have those difficult conversations and those difficult moments. But those are difficult because of how we feel. And I think if you put the right attitude in place, you solve a lot of those problems. What we talked about, and you were started summarizing early on, and I kind of cut across you, is the founder mission, right? Are we doing this for the right reasons? And if we are, how are we building this community of knowledge, experience, and value, and putting that out there? Getting our teams to engage in that. It's not just it's not marketing's job to post stuff on the website or on the LinkedIn page or create a podcast and stuff. We sell from people, and the AE that I speak to is the company. If they are not credible, the company is not credible. It's down to each individual to be responsible for building their own credibility, building the network of people that they engage with, engaging with content online, adding value to it. So comments, opinions, ideas, don't just reshare it, just don't like it, because people will look at it. They want to know what you stand for and who you are. So create that value. When you're engaging with prospects, lead with trust. They need to trust you. So it's not just about whether you support the same team or you went to the same university. It's about your credibility of understanding their business, and don't tell them how to do their job before they've given you permission to tell them how to do their job. The great thing about sales is that you get the privilege of telling people how to do their job, right? Which is basically what we're doing, right? Buy this system from me and it will help you do your job better. But if you start with, hey, you're not doing a good job, which is what you're saying if you engage with that, you're gonna damage it straight away. So start with, how is your job going? Like, where start with empathy and understanding, and I think it'll take you further. And for goodness sake, don't just automate stuff because you want to send out more and more and more emails. I love your idea. Go the other way. Make it non-scalable. Personalize it. Make it relevant, and pick up the bloody phone.
What a way to end it. You've nailed it.
Thanks for listening to the Commercial Edge podcast. I'll be back soon with another episode. Join me then when we delve into more difficult conversations. See you next time.